Good morning, America. It's Monday, October the 8th, 2018. My name, you already know my damn name. But who am I representing? I am representing Citizens United, Hope for America. Grassroots, very much needed in America. I'm very much happy and proud to continue to believe in Citizens United, Hope for America. Today again is Monday, October the 8th. It is about 4 in the morning. And you know, everything that we do in life is all about convenience, man. We do most things because it's convenient, you know what I'm saying? So when it comes to wanting to have this discussion often, it you know, convenience, right? You know, it's never the right time. You know, you can never find time to do something that's positive, you know what I mean? So what I learned to do a while back was stop waiting for all the right conditions to determine whether you move forward, right? So that's why you see me talking to you. I'm at work. I'll talk to you while I'm in the car, you know what I mean? Because a lot of times if we wait for everything to be just right, 9 times out of 10, you know, we just procrastinate, you know what I'm saying? So I think this is episode number 41. 41 times I've got in front of this little camera here and gave it a piece of my mind. And then what I do is I take the video, I edit it, you know, do small clips, you know, might put the whole thing out there, might put half of it out there, you know, a little piece of it, you dig. But there's about 7 platforms that I get to be a part of, you know. And I get to email my opinion in these segments to political figures, radio figures, entertainers, you know, anybody that's on social media, email or whatever. And I get responses and I get encouraging things said and everything. But my main goal, honest to God, I'm going to keep it 100 with you. My main goal is to connect with white people. You know, I actually aspire. I'm an aspiring everything. You know, I believe I can do like most things, right? But in terms of entertainment and stuff like that, I actually aspire to perform for an all-white venue. You know, I'm really looking forward to that. I think that is one of the most ingenious things a black man can do right now. And, you know, that's one of my main goals, is to perform for an all-white audience and to engage the white culture and the white society within this political, economic thing that we call life. So, anyway, episode 41, let's get right to it, nigga. I'm finna just, listen, we're going to cover a lot of ground right now, right? Let me find my damn glasses. Well, no, this is big enough. I can see this. Alright, it's bright enough, as you can see. Alright, so the first thing I want to talk about is Donald Trump and his inheritance. Donald Trump had an inheritance. This is too bright. Donald Trump, you know, that's what life is all about. That's the general, natural course of life. Children are born at some point, you're supposed to inherit what your grandparents or your parents developed in terms of productivity. Donald Trump and is no different than you or me. And if he's born, any child that's born in this country, one of the biggest benefits, other than good health and a good family, one of the biggest benefits is an inheritance. You know, what are you being born into? You know, is your dad rich? Is your mom rich? Is your grandfather rich? You know, so one of the biggest benefits that a child can have outside of good health is to be born into a rich family. And Donald Trump had the fortunate opportunity to be born to a very, very, very wealthy father. Donald Trump's father, I don't have a lot of knowledge about his dad, but I do know that his dad came up, you know, on the come up. He made a lot of money in the government housing development, land opportunities that was created in the 60s and 70s. That was one part of his wealth. And I understand he gained a lot of wealth in that area. So Donald Trump was born to a rich dad. Whoop-de-whoop-whoop. Happens to millions of young men and women in this country all the time. Now, what's different about it is that Donald Trump, for some reason, he did not do like most normal people. Most normal people, when they're born to a rich family, they acknowledge that. They welcome that. They say, hey, man, this is my pops. We got it going on. This is my mom's, you know. And it's like whoop-de-whoop. You know, we got it. You know what I mean? But Donald Trump decided to do something different. Donald Trump decided to create this image that he self-made, that he didn't have any help, you know. And his story, the way he tells it, is that his dad gave him a very, 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 very small loan of $1 million when he was a young man. And Donald Trump wants everyone to believe that he took that $1 million and he created a $10 billion empire. The only problem with that is it's a motherfucking lie. Flat out. Flat out. Just flat out. A fucking lie. The reality is that his father, over the course of his lifetime, contributed upwards of $400 million. He invested $400 million into his son. Into his son. That's just what he invested in Donald. That's not what he invested in his other children. But in his son named Donald, his dad invested around $413 million. You know. Now, like I say, it happens all the time in America. There's millions of young men and women that inherit or have wealthy parents that invest in them. That's normal. What's not normal is to lie about it, to create this image that your dad gave you $1 million and then you went out and flipped it and you the man. You know, that's a fucking lie. A fucking lie. A fucking lie. And you have to put that with literally the 5,000 lies that this human being, I'm not even going to ever call him a man again, because men don't sell their souls in the way that Donald Trump has. Donald Trump has not only sold his soul, but he sold the souls of his children. He's trying to sell our souls, to the Russians, the Palestinians, the North Koreans, the Turkish. The man is, I'm sorry, this human being is not worthy of anything created by God. But anyway, let's move on. So we talked about his inheritance, big ass lie, fake motherfucker. Your daddy gave you $413 million. And the reason why the number kept growing is because you kept fucking up. Every time you fucked up, whether it was in the casinos of Atlantic City or whether it's Jersey or whatever investment that collapsed, your dad had to come with his checkbook and keep your ass afloat. When your dad died, motherfucker, because you wasn't shit, you fucked everything up again, and you ended up as a fucking whore to Russian oligarchs. So they became your father now. Like most hoes. The pimp becomes their father. Becomes their everything. And that's what's happened to Doug. As he has sold his soul. And he thinks he's selling ours, but no. But yeah, so now his dad's dead, and he fucked that money up. And now Mr. Putin and the other oligarchs of Russia now own the President of the United States. So we talked about the inheritance. So what's next? All right, we talked about Trump's dad, his dependency on his dad. We talked about the oligarchs, and the banks that the oligarchs control, funding Donald Trump and his family for the last 15 years. All of the cash purchases that Mr. Trump has embarked on has been financed by his new father, Vladimir. Okay, so now that brings us to Donald Trump and the GOP and their blatant disrespect to women. Donald Trump and the GOP and their blatant disrespect to women. But we have to really look at this. When did they ever respect women? I mean, honestly, look at it. Women had to fight for the right to vote. Voting was granted to women in the late 1800s, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe the early 1900s. That's what happens when you don't further your education. But anything that I say is based on, at some point I came across the data, and I may be off slightly, but I'm pretty much on point, and you can look it up. All you gotta do is Google it. But when did they ever respect women? They wouldn't even allow women to vote. This is no different than India. This is no different than the Arab nations, where women to this day don't have basic rights. Here in the United States, women were not allowed to vote. Women were not allowed to work. Women were not allowed to work in the United States. One of the first jobs that women had was able to get outside of what a man would or would not let them do. The first form of independence that women discovered and gave them main vein into the economics of society was prostitution. That was the first job that women were able to get paid for and find a sense of control and power and a voice for themselves. Now, I say that being funny, obviously, but it's factual. When did they ever respect women? They wouldn't let you vote. They wouldn't let you work. Then you became strong, independence. You began to develop a voice. What happened? They put their wife beater on and start beating your ass. So then you overcame that. And you got into the workplace. And you demanded your rights. And you got some rights. But now it's the politics, the rhetoric, and red tape. Because they can't beat you. And they can't deny you. So now it's rhetoric. It's politics. It's red tape. You overcame that, woman. You overcame the rhetoric. You overcame the politics. You overcame the red tape. So that's what brings us here today. You're too powerful. You're too strong. Women are the biggest threat to the global economic position of the world order that has stood for decades. The biggest threat to that order is the proliferation and the enormous power that has been building up, and it just can't be contained anymore. You can only contain it for so long. So now they've got to a point where they couldn't contain it in 2016. This enormous power that women have just naturally occurred. From an analytics standpoint, there are just more women on this planet than there are men. From an analytics standpoint, women just have a tendency to live a little bit longer than men. From an analytics standpoint, it appears that more women are more interested in voting and the voting process than men are. From an analytics standpoint, we discovered that with as we examined the human brain in childhood development, that little girls pay a little bit more attention than little boys. So, in this world that we live in today, whether you're the leader of North Korea, whether you're the leader of Pakistan, Turkey, Israel, Iran, whether you're the leader of Russia, Egypt, you don't like women. You don't respect women, whether you're the leader of the United States. And the last thing in the world that the Pentagon, the KGB, British intelligence, any of these intelligence community, military, the last thing in the world that they want is to see a woman as president of the United States. The last thing in the world, the Pentagon, the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, the United States military, police unions, the last thing in the world that they want to see, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, the last thing in the world that the Pentagon, FBI, CIA, GOP, last thing they want to see is a female in the White House. Why? Ask yourself why. And I'll tell you why. The reason why is the same motherfucking reason they didn't want John F. Kennedy or Robert F. Kennedy in the White House. The same motherfucking reason that they killed John F. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy, Martin and Malcolm, is because women like them, once they enter the world that the intelligence community has systematically created meticulously since the biggest lie in the universe about the moon, they don't want a woman walking into that arena looking at the data, and they know that there's absolutely no way in the universe that a woman is going to go along with what they've been doing. They know that. Just as they knew that Robert and John Kennedy were not going to go along with what they had planned, what they were beginning to do in the 60s when they first started lying to America in terms of the Apollo space mission. That's what really pretty much led us down this very dark path. One lie after another. So they knew then, and they know now, that if a woman gets access to the data and the realm that they've created, that it's going to result in a massive cut in terms of what they've been getting, and it's going to result in a massive reduction in what they have and what they are getting. They know that. They know that once a woman gets into that data, that the financial benefits are going to change dramatically, and they don't want that under any circumstance. So they're willing to commit treason. They're willing to work together. The Republican Party in its entirety has fallen right in line, lockstep with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. The Republican Party in total has lined up lockstep in its attack against America, against Americans, and against the American institutions of law and the judicial system and the legislative branches. And the Republican Party is now a willing participant in a cyber war that was started by Russia and placed a ineligible individual into the White House. Donald Trump cannot pass a background check. I mean, it may be hard for you to wrap your mind around what I just said. The President of the United States did not have a background check. You know, the background check that you have to have when you work at McDonald's or GM or wherever. You know, the background check that you have if you want to be a babysitter, you know, work at a restaurant, you know, there's a background check. The President of the United States didn't have one because he can't pass one. He has a trail of relationships with people that would disqualify him for any type of federal position. He has a trail of financial entanglements that would disqualify him from any type of federal position, especially over money. He has a trail of immoral conduct that would exclude him from any type of federal position, and that's why they never gave him a background check. Wow. He never had a drug test. They didn't test him for drugs. They didn't even get to see his medical records. And so wow, yeah. But anyway, what we got? Trump's numerous failures. I mean, Donald Trump portrays himself as a successful businessman when in reality, everything that he's touched has failed. His casinos went bankrupt. Trump University ended up going bankrupt and getting sued and having to pay a huge fine. He tried to get into the poultry business, steaks or some shit. That failed. He tried to sell ties and shit. That failed. His golf courses, were stagnant. If it were not for the Russian financing over the last 10 years, I mean, Donald Trump would not exist. Donald Trump economic worth had declined to the point where he resorted to reality TV to make money because he couldn't do nothing else. No investments. The properties were failing. Bankruptcy after bankruptcy. Successful businessmen do not have a bankruptcy every 7 years of their life. That's a failure. That's a failed businessman that's having a bankruptcy every time he's eligible. And so, Donald Trump and this art of the deal, this art of the deal, him being this great deal maker, and as I just stated, the man hasn't made any deals. He's failed at every deal. So now he's got this new thing where he comes in and he just finds out what deals have already been made, and then he tears those up. Any deals that were made before he got here, he identifies them and then he destroys them. And then through the chaos, he'll then take credit for reestablishing pretty much the same deal that he just destroyed. And then he'll take credit for it as if he made this deal, So it's like you start a fire and then you run to the nearest phone and call 911 because you're a hero. Now you're going to be a hero. You call 911 and then you go back to the fire and rescue everybody in the house. And then you want to stand outside and take credit as a hero. Well, motherfucker, who started the fire? You did, nigga. So how can you be the hero and the motherfucking villain? Well, that's his new thing. That's his new thing now. Whether it's the whole North Korean thing or whether it's the dismantling of the Iran nuclear deal or tearing up NAFTA or going at the UN or he just, whatever deal was on the table before he got there, he destroys it. And then throughout all the commotion, he'll take credit for introducing the very same deal that he destroyed. It's sickening. It's fucking sickening. And then to see that the entire Republican Party lockstep is condoning this criminal and this criminal behavior. He's a criminal. This man is a criminal. This man committed treason. by establishing backdoor relationships with Russian oligarchs to undermine the financial structure of the United States, which he then took that momentum into his political aspirations. And with the help of other criminals, he has succeeded in undermining our cyber security, and they were able to put this man in the White House. And it's been established, it's an established fact, and the Republicans who have sworn to uphold the Constitution has decided to take the Russian oligarchs' dark money and turn the other way. So, what if, so here in America, we have this thing called the Ku Klux Klan. We have these things called white nationalists. We have this thing called white militias, neo-Nazis, a variety of organizations and individuals. But what do they have in common? The one thing that they have obviously in common is these are 99.9% of them are white men. That's the most obvious common thing. That white men have been allowed by the United States government, allow them to develop, nurture, and create from the grassroots now up through the economic platforms into corporate America, these very interesting organizations and these empowering the millions of people to become neo-Nazis and white nationalists and Klansmen and just full of hate and all of that. Now, the funny thing is the United States government condones it. They allow it. But the thing is that when it came to minorities, we were not allowed to develop organizations to help us combat the very detrimental incidents and activities that was going on in our communities. The United States government did not support our efforts to save our communities from these third world tactics and these toxic environments and everything. We didn't get that support. We got the opposite. The United States government attacked our men who were trying to defend our communities and fight for this country in a survivalistic type of way. We were attacked and falsely imprisoned and murdered. And at the same time, they've allowed these white men to develop these very creative, economic, and highly motivated organizations. And so now we have about 30 million angry white men that are being manipulated by other bigoted and racist white men, and it's costing us around the world. It's costing us here at home, and it's always been us against them. It's always been America's ability to stand with my non-white people as they are being attacked, persecuted, and discriminated against. It's always been our ability to overpower the desires of these racist and bigoted men. And today is no different. We're going to have to overpower their racism, their hate. We got to hit it head on. The same way we did in the 60s. Nothing has changed. When they proliferate and rise up, we have to rise up to get them to understand that God, there is one God, and there is one people, and we are one. And today is no different, So yeah, as I get on out of here, let's talk about something, man. environment, right? Ladies and gentlemen, we're being poisoned on purpose. A lot of our water supplies have been breached, and they are putting chemicals. They are creating environments that create slow deaths. A slow death is a legal death. Immediate death won't be tolerated, but slow deaths are very much accepted, and they are creating very toxic environments through our water system. And I hate to say this, man, but I'm gonna keep saying it, man, because I need y'all to pay attention, man. For the last 30 years, somebody is flying military style jets all day, every day, here in the United States, in this area, that area. But it's systematic. And these military style jets are leaving a trail. Chemtrails is what they're called. Chemtrails, where you disperse chemicals in the atmosphere, and you leave, as you go along, you leave a trail. For the last 30 years, they have been inundating our atmosphere with whatever these chemical particles, these white cloud-like substances. In most instances, when you look up in the sky and you see what appears to be clouds, a lot of times it's not. Those are the remnants of chemtrails as they disperse and break off and dissolve into the atmosphere. They look very naturally, and it looks like a normal white cloudish over the blue sky type thing. Please start just looking up in the sky every once in a while and notice that these military jets are inundating our atmosphere with some white chemical particle. And it's been going on about 30 years. It's gotten worse under President Trump. It looks like they've been authorized to double time, you know. And I'm not just talking. If you would just stop ignoring the shit, you see it. You look up and you see the shit every once in a while. You know, you don't pay attention. It's been going on for 30 years. You've noticed it, but you just don't want to let it, you know. So that's something I wanted to end this thing on. And also, the last thing I want to end it on is the white nationalists, the Klan, the neo-Nazis, the white supremacists, the Fraternal Order of Police, the Pentagon, the intelligence community. They have commercialized hate. Hate is now an economic giant. You know, they have turned hate into a very successful economic, both politically and financially. They've weaponized, hate has always been weaponized, but now they've turned it into a political commodity and an economic commodity. We absolutely have to find whatever inner strength to begin to have discussions on what we're going to do with all this hate. So anyway, Wes Jones, No Excuses, episode number 41. I think it might be 42, but I think it's 41. Is in the books. God bless. God bless you. And so I'm happy to be here this morning to talk to you.